Rangers, just before we get into this review, just want to bring up that we do have another channel called The Geek Chest, which if you guys are interested in anime, want to check out some sweet Godzilla reviews, or just want to know what's going on with the channel, what action figures I'm going to be picking up, or what's actually come in, definitely recommend going to subscribe to that channel, become a Ranger today, and now on to the review. Hey Rangers, welcome to Super Important Reviews. My name is Steve, and today we're going over some of my Japanese vinyl figures, which what we have here is Legion from Gamera 2, Advent of Legion, which is 1996, and Gamera and Irys from Gamera 3, Revenge of Irys, which was 1999. These were a request from Carl Bryant and Godzilla 154, which Carl requested the Irys right here, and Godzilla requested just Gamera figures in general, so decided to toss the other two in here for this review. But little backstory on these figures, I've actually had the Irys for a little while now, which I actually picked up from this comic book shop that used to be around here, but sadly went out of business, which I actually really love going there because it was like the only place within probably about a good 100 miles that actually sold Japanese vinyls and would generally get them in on a regular basis. And it was nice to actually find that little gem in our actual town, because it was just like Godzilla stuff just wasn't really that relevant around here, except for the Trendmaster figures when they showed up. Which, moving on, they also had a Legion there for the longest time, which I sadly had to miss out on because the guy wanted a decent amount for him at the time. Which, like, and when I'm a kid, like $50 for a vinyl figure, like, holy crap, that's a lot of money, you know? But nowadays, I've just been really wanting a Legion to add in my collection because Legion's my favorite giant monster ever. So we wanted to get this particular figure in general because it was one of the ones that I always thought was cool seeing at the comic book shop. And I picked this guy up at G-Fest recently. Also got the Gamera here too at G-Fest because this is actually the one you had to go see in Japanese movie theaters. So he's a little bit special, and I really actually love these like little unique figures that add to my collection. I just think he looks cool with the little burning arm and stuff. And for this review, Irys and Legion actually don't have their tags on, so you'll be able to see them in their entirety without anything distracting you while you're watching the video. Gamera, on the other hand, I'm actually keeping the tag on, which is something that's a little bit odd for me because I don't usually keep the tags on these figures. Just because I like them to be displayed as their actual monsters and not actually having like the parts from the actual packaging hanging off of them. But Gamera's just one of those unique cases, so going over him, he's going to have his tag there, but I'll go over even the tag with you guys too. But for this review, we're going to start with Big Bad Daddy Legion here, or I guess I should say Big Bad Mama because it's technically a queen. But overall, I actually really love the details on this little vinyl figure here. Or I can't really say little because this thing's actually pretty huge. But they actually conveyed a lot of the details here very nicely on the vinyl here, where you get a lot of the accurate details here for the little, I'm not sure exactly what to call these things, but they're like the little embryo sacs that the little Legion soldiers actually shot out of, that she could actually have them attack Gamera or go do their own little things. Which I think it's really cool that they actually got the details on there very nicely for that. Head sculpt actually looks pretty clean, especially since using vinyls, you're going to see a lot of excess plastic on a lot of these figures, just because they can't actually like cut out the little details here and stuff, unlike you see with some of the larger X pluses. But on the Legion here, it doesn't really bother me all that much because you get a little bit right here on the inside of the mouth. But they do kind of try to match the colorings here a little bit, so it's not quite as distracting. And even like the underside of the mouth looks freaking awesome, where you can see pretty much everything that's going on here. Even the split here, where her little horn right here would actually split apart and she could shoot a beam out of it. Oh, when it's broken off, it does like the little tentacle thing there, which actually was really cool and very surprising for that movie, and just one of the main things I really just love about the Legion. Body details still look really nice here as well, where it has a lot of the creases here that you saw in the actual suit, and even the appendages here, which I kind of wish that this figure had a little bit more articulation, because this part kind of moves a little bit, but that's just because it's a little loose. But not like super loose, it's just the way that they hooked it in there. It's not glued in or anything, so it has a little bit of play to it. Which is kind of nice, because if it fell off, then you don't have to worry about this thing like breaking off or anything. Giant horn here looks awesome. Also for a color scheme, it's very gray, but it also has this nice like dry brushing or airbrushing of this more golden color here that you see on the horns here. Especially on the back of the Legion here too. And a lot of it shows up here too on the legs for the inside portion of the hind larger legs. And a crap ton here on the claw arm thingy that she has. And with the legs here are probably one of the only things I don't really like on her, because it's just kind of like, they're just kind of kicked down. She's just kind of relaxing and chilling. I kind of wish they would sit up a little bit more so that they'd be a little bit more flush to the ground. But it's kind of like how you see it in the movie too, where they just kind of were just laying around. But a lot of the debris and stuff kind of make it look a little better, so it's kind of nice that it's conveyed a little bit better on the figure here. But moving to the more hind regions, the back legs actually look really nice too, except for this looks a little bit rounded to me, but it still looks really good. These actually can touch down, which is pretty nice, so you could have her sitting up a little bit. But I kind of wish you could do the same thing here with the hind legs. But the details on the back of here look really nice too, where you get, again, the gold painting on the top here with the gray undertones. And then back here is more of the same gray with a lot of nice ridges for the end of the abdomen region here, or I guess you call it sphincter. Another for the bottom, just nice and smooth, has your standard copyright information, which came out in 96, Bandai 96, made in Japan. And overall, pretty much the details, nothing really too bad, other than, again, it'd be kind of nice that there's maybe a little bit of holes in here, but that's just because it's a vinyl figure, it's going to have these little things. And also, one thing that's kind of weird with this figure is she's actually really squishy. Like you can see here, I could kind of bend in pretty much everything, maybe even hear the air coming out of it. Because she actually has a lot of play to her in terms of just the vinyl. Like everything just kind of squishes in. Which I'm not 100% sure just because she's just a relatively large figure. Because in terms of vinyl figures, this is the biggest one I got in terms of Bandai vinyls. Next to a larger Gamera figure, which I'll show for comparisons. But he's actually hard as a rock. Well, she actually, again, has a lot of play with the vinyl here, which is just something kind of unique for her. But the details do convey very nicely on her overall. It's just kind of wish that the legs were a little bit more flush to the ground. But other than that, she's pretty awesome. And briefly for articulation, the arms can move up and down, nothing too fancy. Head can rotate side to side, but that's about as much play as you get there. And the hind legs can move up and down. Also have a little bit of rotation here at the little claw here for the hind leg. Also have some rotation here at the back of the claw for the arms. And the upper part of the waist can also rotate ever so slightly, but that's about it. And then next, moving on to Gamera from Revenge of Irys. The details on this figure actually are pretty nice. One thing that I was kind of weird when I initially bought it, because I didn't actually notice it when I was purchasing it, because you'll notice here for the paint job, it's a very nice dark green, which is pretty accurate for the Gamera. Has pupilless eyes that are also in a very light green shade, almost glow in the dark coloring. You have white here for the teeth and the tusk. And then for the right arm, you also get this nice fiery translucent plastic here, which overall helps to replicate the fire punch that he does to Irys at the end of the movie, where he's just like, and explosions. Which was what I thought originally the gimmick was on this figure, where this part was actually translucent. Well, actually, the entire figure is actually translucent, grabbing one of my lights. As you guys can see here, the entire figure is actually made out of translucent plastic, which is something that's really cool. Like, it's something that's very common for these figures where they actually have this little gimmick. Like, I've had a few of them like this. But on this Gamera figure, it actually just doesn't show up as well as on some of the other ones, which I kind of like because then it helps to more accurately represent the character in your collection, but also has this cool little gimmick as well. So even without a light sitting behind her or anything, it still looks really awesome standing on your shelf. You notice a nice paint job here on the left hand here for the claws, even though it kind of bleeds in on the hand a little bit, but still pretty cool. It has this nice bronze paint job here on the front portion of the shell here, looks really nice. Same with the legs here, look pretty standard with white here for the nails as well. Except for some odd reason, on this side, stupid bright white. On this side, more of a dull shade. Back of the shell looks freaking fantastic with a lot of nice textures and everything. Everything very reminiscent of Gamera. Where you even have like right here where the little bumps and regions show up, even on like the SHs and whatnot, which is really nice. And then you also get his adorable little stubby tail. Even on the back of the legs, like they got the little claws here too that show up in the film, which is really nice. Might have been nice to actually see some paint on there since they pretty much painted all the other little claw regions on Gamera, but I can understand it. Also, what's kind of weird is on the bottom of his feet, he actually has a little bit of details and textures on here too, just not your standard copyright information, which is actually pretty cool. And then briefly go over the tag here, which if you have a movie theater figure, this is the dead giveaway here with the golden tag right here, which mine's tag's a little bit beat up, but then again, I didn't pay a whole lot for this guy either. And just show you guys the front of it as well, where you get a nice image of Gamera from the film. And also on the inside, a bunch of stuff I don't understand. And then for his arms, without overextending the arm into the plastic, his arms can move up about that far, down about that far. And then for his legs, can rotate about that far up and about that far back. And his tail can also rotate all the way around. And then finally, we have Irys, which I would say is my favorite out of the three in terms of detail and paint job. Because this figure is actually bonkers good looking. Like, this is almost what I would say is on the verge of X plus good looking, especially in this tinier scale. Like, in terms of a lot of my Japanese vinyls, this is definitely one of the more impressive figures. Just to show you, I'm bringing it in for a closer look at the head sculpt. Head sculpt is amazing. It has this really nice silver paint job here, but you see a lot of the details and textures here that you saw with what Irys actually looked like in the film. On the inside of the head here, you got the yellow, which looks like for the eyes, but in the film, it actually was more of like a giant globe, at least in appearance. That kind of just helped to replicate the eyes for it. Body details look amazing. It has this nice molded muscle mass here on the top section. The body actually looks really good here for the front part of the chest, where you get this nice metallic blue paint job here, and a little bit here on the insides of the abdomen region. Also, like the stomach region actually sticks out a little bit, but you still get a lot of nice details here for the inside sections of the body here as well. And then you get the adorable little wings, which look really awesome on this. It'd be kind of cool to actually see like the full-fledged flying Irys with like the tentacles and stuff just kind of hanging out and just flying in the wind. That would actually be really cool. Not something you could be easily replicating on these figures, but just be a nice thing to do extra, like with a different launch. And one of the more impressive areas on this figure is this back, what I'm going to call the shell, where a lot of these are like where the wings house and whatnot. And it has a lot of very nice details here on the upper sections of the plating here, which look really nice. And there's just a lot of layers here that show up very well, and has a lot of nice sharp edges here too, which really help to make this figure stand out. And the arms look really cool too, where it's this giant spear-like appendage, where you pretty much get the arm here too, and then it's just like a little shield that sits on top of the arm, and there's just this huge blade here that just stretches out even farther from the back here, which is something that's a very unique look for pretty much any of the kaijus. Sort of reminiscent of what you had with like Megalon and Gigan, but not to this extreme. Also even has more blades here on the kneecaps here, which look awesome. And then for its feet, which is super odd looking because it kind of looks like roots, but also like horse feet, which is a little bit odd, but very cool for this kaiju. And then finally you get 4 tentacles on this figure, which they all look very nice here, where overall the paint job is more, I'm gonna say, of a orangish red, more leaning towards the orange color for the body scheme. Then you get like the blacks, metallic blues, and silvers here for the accents and highlights. But for the tentacles, you get a lot of more of this blood red orange, which also has a silver paint job here for the tips. Look really nice. Might be nice to see a little bit more paint here for the little bulbs on the inside of the spear portions of the tentacle. But overall, the details are still really great on these. Same with even on the back portions here too, look fantastic. But in terms of articulation, probably the coolest yet the worst of the 3 that we got on, because for Irys, the arms can go up and a little bit down, but the range of motion for Irys is not very good in terms of arms. And that's pretty much it, because you'll see some seam lines here for the body, but there's no articulation here. Legs don't go anywhere. Tentacles on the back are glued in. But the tentacles here actually have a little bit of play with them. Which one thing I always thought was cool, because you kind of have it just sitting down and resting if you stick it behind the spikes, where it can move down. Looks pretty good. Doesn't take up a whole lot of shelf space. But if you play around with it a little bit, you actually get it to sit inside the plastic a bit, so that the tentacles can actually stretch out to the side. It just takes a little bit of pushing in. But then they kind of elongate, so it's in more of like an attack pattern, which is something that's really cool. And for a quick comparison, here we have the Japanese Gamera Bandai vinyl figures with a larger Gamera Bandai vinyl from Gamera Guardian of the Universe, and the Cretaceous King Ghidorah from Mothra 3. And here I am with some Gamera Revoltech figures of Gamera and Gauss from 1967's film Gamera vs. Gauss. And for what I could say be the most important comparison I could do is Legion here with the SH Monster's Gamera 1996. Which I would have to say, this scale actually doesn't look bad with them next to each other, especially since the SH Monster's Gamera doesn't really have any figures to really work with him, just because he's the only one that they've actually released out of the line. And I think this Legion works pretty well with it, even though with the scaling, she should stand about here over top of Gamera. But still, it's not too bad. She's just kind of hunched over, but she was leaning up. It would be fairly accurate looking. And she's still a relatively large figure, so she looks pretty good next to the Gamera. And here they are with another fan-requested figure, the Gallop Starship Troopers Arachnid / Warrior Bug. So overall, with the Japanese Gamera Bandai vinyl figures, I think these things are actually really sweet. The details on them are very nice. They're very sturdy figures, and also they're relatively cheap in terms of what you could be collecting for Godzilla figures, especially when you compare them to like S.H. Monster Arts, Marmots, or even the X-Pluses. These things are definitely a lot more affordable to your standard collector. And these things just look really great standing on your shelf. Especially the Legion that I showed you guys. Like, that thing looks really nice next to the S.H. Monster Arts Gamera. So a lot of you guys that are subscribed that really love the S.H. Monster Arts line, the Legion's actually a figure I would recommend picking up just because it looks really nice standing next to that. Just sort of as a placeholder until we hopefully get an S.H. Monster Arts version. So if you guys are looking to add Gamera figures to your collection, then I think the Japanese vinyls are probably the way to go. But what do you guys think? Do you guys own any of the Japanese vinyl action figures? What's your favorite Gamera toy, or is Godzilla just more your thing? Please let us know in the comments. We'll post some pictures of these guys on Facebook. You want to click the link description below. Help us defeat those kaijus by hitting that like button. Subscribe, become a ranger today, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.